Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the eDiscovery channel. This is Tom O'Connor in New Orleans, Louisiana. Rachi Messing is with us stateside these days.
I am
in town for a lengthy stay. I take it, like, didn't you say you're going to be here for a couple months?
Yeah, here till August.
Good,
So,
good. And we're really happy to be joined by Marla Crawford, who's the GC at Cimplifi, who many of you folks will recall was formerly known as Compliance. And I was just beginning to ask when I was so rudely interrupted by myself previously. Marla, that was a recent name change, wasn't it?
Yes. So we unveiled our new name at Legal Week in March, which was our big reveal. And we're very excited to have the new name that we feel symbolizes more of the modernization of our company that has been around actually since 1997.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize they were that old.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, in eDiscovery years, that's really old.
That's like almost as old as us, Rachi.
Well, as old as you, Tom. Not as I'm a youngster. Come on.
I'm pleading the fifth on that one.
Right.
And I'll say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, the company is involved in eDiscovery, but also IG and contracts analytics. And you were using, I don't know if it was even called this then, but you guys were using some form of AI in your contract analytics very early on. Am I correct there?
Yes, thank you for teeing that up for me. So the newest division of our company that's a little over a year old is what we call our CALM division, Contract Analytics Lifecycle Management.
Right.
And we're very proud of our model building and our use of AI and analytics to help our clients, both with legacy contracts to understand what's in them for various use cases, but also for lifecycle management for contract initiation going forward.
Right. As Rachi knows, I'm not a fan of the phrase or the acronym AI because it's overused in our business. And it's always great to talk to somebody who's had not just a long-term use of it, but a rock solid, focused, definable. You know, when somebody says, what do you mean by AI? You can answer that with a real use case analysis, not, well, it's magic.
We do all kinds of stuff that machines are doing and you couldn't do otherwise. Like, okay, let's get practical. But let's back up a little bit.
But let's go back.
Tom jumped ahead. So let's back up. So Marla, tell us a little bit about how first of all, are you a native New Yorker or
No, I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, the suburbs of Cleveland.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Wow.
Cool.
People don't believe it because I've so taken to being a New Yorker, and I've lived here now since 1988. So maybe I'm more of a New Yorker, but you can't take the Ohio out of the girl.
You went to college at Duke and then law school at BU, so you've been around, so at least in the.
That's what they say.
That's a couple of different environments from Cleveland. So how did that happen? How did you start on this journey?
On the journey to eDiscovery and legal technology?
Let's start law. Yeah, let's start law. I mean, did you always know growing up you wanted to be a lawyer? Was that kind of a college thing? Was that a post-college thing? How the whole intro to law come about?
So my father was a lawyer, but he was what I call a real people lawyer. He was a solo practitioner and had his own office and helped people with their real life problems. And I spent, being an only child, I spent a lot of time in his office watching him work and meeting his clients and seeing what he did. And I liked it. And I said, I want to do that. And so that's what propelled me into law school.
Cool. Okay. Awesome.
And were you thinking then you do that? Do you emulate your dad? Were you thinking like private practice, small firm practice?
His advice to me was don't do exactly what I did. He thought the law was a great profession and he loved it, but he advised me to to join a bigger firm where the day-to-day, the administrative things, the worry about where your next paycheck was coming from was not something I had to deal with. And in fact, he said, you should join a firm like Jones Day. Being from Cleveland, Jones Day was the biggest game in town. And indeed, that's what I wound up doing.
And did you work in the Cleveland office?
I was a summer associate in Cleveland, and then I worked in Cleveland for about 6 months. And they were opening the New York office, and they asked people to move. Anyone who wants to move will pay for your move. So I was the 32nd lawyer in New York City.
Yeah, I'm on that list.
Yeah, exactly. Big city, why not? Get out of Cleveland for a little bit.
And how was that? Was there culture shock, economic shock?
So I love New York. I had been to New York a few times. My college roommates were from New York. And so I had come to New York, and I loved it. I loved everything about New York. I still love New York. And they said they pay for my move, and I got a little bit of a bump in salary for cost of living. So I was the 32nd lawyer in the Jones Day New York office, which now
wait a minute. A little bit of bump in salary. You know, I know what the cost of living in New York is. That must have been did you live in the city at first?
I lived in Riverdale, which is a suburb on the Hudson River in the Bronx.
Yeah. Nice.
Cool. Awesome. And then you were at Jones Day for quite a while, right?
22 years.
22 years. Wow. And what happened that you decided to go to the corporate side, and was that a easy transition? Was that something that you had been thinking about for a while? Kind of what was going on there?
So I worked 22 years at Jones Day, and I really concentrated most of my practice on cases that had huge discovery efforts. And I led a lot of the discovery for some of the bigger cases. One of the cases that I worked on was Enron for Jones Day's client, Lehman Brothers. And that really exposed me, to being one of the first e-discovery lawyers, because we were building the systems, in the room, trying to figure out how to look at all this email. And also exposed me, to financial services. I worked on auction rate securities for Lehman Brothers after that. And then a friend of mine from one of the service providers called and said, I heard that Goldman Sachs is looking for a person to start an e-discovery program there. And I'd like to put in your name. And that's how that all came about.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so did you always have in touch with technology, or was that truly just a byproduct of you started getting involved in large discovery and the technology came along with it?
It was totally a byproduct. I was never interested in technology, barely passed my computer 101 class at college. And when I started practicing law, we didn't have computers on our desks. So I remember getting the first Wang, the green screen, the big computer on my screen. And I realized I could search. If I typed something in on there, I could search for a word. Thought it was like magic.
Right.
I couldn't even believe how much time that would save me. So really, I just adopted technology to get my work done quicker and more efficiently. And at least I can say I was open to learning it. So I would adopt it pretty easily because I just wanted to get stuff done.
Right. And which actually, going back to the 90s, I mean, that was not typical of an attorney. Most attorneys, especially in big firms, were not open to the technology. They weren't looking to see how can I be more efficient, which everyone would think should be the case. That you look for the efficiency, but they really, most attorneys, at least then, were not looking for it. And even today, we'll probably end up talking a little bit about education and bringing attorneys along for the ride. But it's hard. It's not every attorney is willing to take that leap of faith that the computer is going to be able to actually help me here. So that's pretty cool that you were able to see that back early in your career.
I'm sorry, let me interrupt real quick too. How long on the Wang? How long was it before you transitioned to some sort of a LAN?
I mean, Jones Day was pretty quick in terms of adopting technology, at least in those early days. So I don't really remember. I think it was probably 2 or 3 years before we had something that was a little faster, but I was always happy to be a beta tester. And really, it's not an interest in technology. It's not trying to understand how it works. I had 2 little kids. I had to get my work done. I just wanted to do anything that helped me, get my work done more accurately and quicker. So it was necessity. And I will say, I am an open person to learning new things.
Right. And so let's actually talk about that from an education standpoint. We've talked, Tom and I, with a lot of different guests about the troubles of educating the legal industry as a whole and trying to bring them along, especially with some of the more modern technologies. We talked a little bit AI and what that means and how that's actually working. And a lot of it is, I think I've always thought that a lot of it is that the technologists are so enamored with the technology itself and lose sight of what the goal is. I just want to get this job done more efficiently. In your career, have you championed that? I mean, I know you have because I've been alongside you for a while. But kind of, what are some of the things that you've done to help bring people along? And what are you doing? Even we can jump ahead right now to what you're doing today in terms of helping people to understand that. And, I would say most attorneys today aren't necessarily, don't have technophobia, but they're still not necessarily grabbing onto technology. So, you've seen it help in your career. How do you help educate others to see the same light?
You have really the key point, which is for lawyers, technology just has to be useful. So if it's user-friendly and it gets the lawyer to a place more accurately and more efficiently, then a lawyer is going to want to use it. And that's the key. So when we were building the first systems on the Enron case, there were 600,000 emails and we had to build 6 systems because each system only could take 100,000 emails, right? Now that's a small production. So we had to do 6 searches for everything, like anything you want to see. And we thought that was brilliant, like literally brilliant, because otherwise we're in boxes, right? Or like looking through documents. So I think that was my foundation. And then watching that progress to where the systems could hold more documents, you could do more Boolean searching, you could see more things, watching that morph into the wheels that you taught me, Rachi, right? With the Petri dishes and then,
back in the
analytics. It's just, what can it do for me? So then when I went in-house and I was building a system there, I was lucky to have a legal technology team that was very user-friendly, who would meet with me and talk to me about what I wanted to achieve and then build to that. And I think that that's the key to getting lawyers to adopt technology, start understanding their use cases. There's a lot of tech out there that lawyers just, it does cool stuff, but we're never going to use it. And now that I'm in sort of that third phase of my career on the service provider side, it's very important to be able to adapt to the client need. and to be able to be nimble, to say, I understand your problem, and we are going to give you a solution that solves that problem. Not to say this is the technology and you can fit your problem into it. We are going to take this technology and we are going to do whatever we have to do with it to solve your problem so you can do your work better.
Right.
And I think it's just that simple.
That's a great analysis, though, because I have this discussion with people all the time. I just got a call the other day from somebody who wanted some help on something. And my first question is always, what do you want to do? What is it you're trying to do here? What's your problem? How do we solve it? But, you know, it's as simple as, what exactly is it you want to do? Because we do get so caught up in technology. We start talking about, you know, positronic thrusters and hash values, you know, and we lose our clients sometimes right from the start. You've got to be able to get that discussion focused. I'm really glad to hear you say that, because it's so key. And you got to do it from the start. It's got to be from day one. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Okay, so at this point, there goes the technology. At this point, so what year did you actually join Goldman?
2010.
At 2010. So it was post financial collapse, right?
Yes, it was a couple of years into the financial crisis. Yeah.
Right. But did you have any worries? Was that, I mean, at that point, we kind of knew what was going on. I mean, things had fallen apart around us in 2008, but in 2010, you felt pretty confident, I guess, going to Goldman at that point.
I was so lucky. So I had no interest in leaving Jones Day. It was my home. I had been there, you know, since I was a summer associate, and the firm had always been very good to me. And then I got this opportunity, and quite honestly, I wasn't going to take it. I was like, I don't want to leave my home. I don't want to leave my friends. And the managing partner of the office at the time heard from one of my partner friends that I was considering this job. And he called me in and he said, you're going to be really good at this. You need to take this job. It's like, I don't believe, I feel really good here. And he's like, you need to take this job. This job is perfect for you and you're going to be great at it. But here's the thing. If you hate it and you don't want to stay there, you can come back.
Oh, there you go.
The door is open for you. So
Right.
I went very, you know, with a lot of peace in my heart, because I felt like I could come back.
Yeah.
Right. That's a great boss. I mean, that's the kind of leadership that you need, because it's the, I obviously I want you to be good for me, but what you really need to do is do what's best for yourself and know that you always have a home here. And if we had more leaders like that, then the world would be a better place. But so that's awesome. So it gave you that safety net, and you jumped into Goldman, and really, I mean, you did an amazing job. Can you talk a little bit about some of the programs, some of the stuff that you helped to create in terms of, especially then, you know, financial services firms, while they had been hit hard, e-discovery wasn't necessarily still at the top of their agenda. Yeah. So what was it like, you know, going in 2010 to Goldman and some of the stuff you did?
Well, the impetus, I think, for building an e-discovery program at, you know, most corporations at that time was cost avoidance. So it wasn't as much cost savings, because, you know, savings connotes that you're putting money in your pocket. Right. It's more cost avoidance. So financial services generally at that time were recognizing that this was something that was super expensive, that law firms were making a lot of money on, not necessarily because law firms were nefarious in trying to bilk their clients, but because it was something that wasn't a core competency for them, and they were just trying to get through it. So if paying for it got them through it, then that's what they were doing. And so financial services and other large companies, pharma, were big manufacturing. They were realizing if we took control of this from an in-house perspective, we would spend less money. And so there was a commitment to that because there would be a great outcome. And return on investment wasn't really a phrase we used at the beginning. It was something that involved, but indeed that's what we were doing. We were getting the big corporations to make an investment so we could avoid spending more money than we needed to.
Right. And so at the time that involved, I mean, you guys didn't bring processing in-house, right? But it was more about putting the structure around the systems and the vendors and who you're having your law firms use, correct?
It was multifold. We did eventually bring a license of an early case assessment tool. The tech team there is, fantastic. And so they were doing the collections, and then we did bring rigor around the process, the pricing, the selection of vendors. Eventually that morphed in all financial services to information security reviews. I literally remember in 2011, the financials were starting to roll out, and financials do a lot of things together, best practices. We were starting to roll out security reviews. There was a vendor who refused to do it. We're not doing your security review. We're like, well, then
you're not a vendor.
Yeah, you're not working with us.
And they were like, there's no way we're showing you this information and sharing this with you. It's not happening. And they were no longer a vendor. And to imagine that today, right? Today, where step one is a security review, and the most important thing for every for every service provider is security. Game over. Step one, most important. And there are no big logos or clients to have if you can't prove your security. So that was, can you believe that was like 11, 12 years ago?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, it's when you think about that, that's one of the major shifts that's happened. Forget about just the technology evolving overall, but the fact that on the vendor side and the partner side, I should say, the willingness now to work together with the clients, as opposed to being, you were always trying to help, but there was still that friction in that at odds period. And I think now, which has moved, almost any good vendor is now truly a partner, which didn't, it was rare. You had a few, which I think probably relates to your relationship with Cimplifi and some of the team there, which we'll get to in a moment. But I think having that true partnership and being willing to work together is so important in terms of being able to move things along. Looking back at let's stop at the end of Goldman Sachs before making the transition. But if you look back over your years at Jones Day through the end of your time at Goldman, what would you say is the biggest shift in the legal technology industry for you that you personally experienced? Like what was there at the beginning that at the end you were like, oh my God, I can't believe we've ever gotten to this point?
So e-discovery, when it started, was magic, right? It was literally magic. It was foreign. I remember speaking at a New York Bar Association event in Albany at the beginning of e-discovery, and some gentleman stood up and started screaming at me, "Are you telling me that there are documents that are not paper? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Right.
I was like, don't hurt me, but
Yeah.
yes.
Sounds like a Seinfeld episode, right?
Right.
So, it was magic. It wasn't part of almost the practice of law. It was something adjacent. And over a very short period of time, right? Over 20 years, which is nothing in terms of the law, nothing. E-discovery has just really become part of civil procedure. It is a core competency of every litigator. You don't have to be an expert in it, but you have to know it. The rules of procedure themselves have changed in 20 years to adopt this. And I find that fascinating because the law moves so slowly. But here, the law moves so quickly and catching up with technology.
And we've had 2 rule changes, right? That's really amazing.
Amazing.
2006 was amazing enough, and then oh no, that wasn't enough. We got to find.
We're going to push it one more.
Yeah. You make a great point though about the competency, because I remember having a discussion early on with some lawyers at a firm, and one of them said, "I don't know. I don't need to know this. Why do I need to know this? I don't need to know how to do a heart transplant to do a medical malpractice case." And I said, "Well, counselor, you're right. You don't. But you do need to know the difference between a fibula and a scapula, right? You got to know some of the basic definitions of what's going on in the human body and how doctors work to handle that sort of a case. Likewise, now in almost every case, you need to have some understanding of ESI, of electronic data, and how computers work and store things and where they put them and what different systems mean. Right. If you're to use the medical analogy, if your cholesterol levels are high, what's that doing to your system? If you're using a relational database to store your data, what's that doing to the data? You gotta know some of those basic things.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So you moved over to Cimplifi when was
February, February 2021. So I've been there a little over a year.
Okay. And what was that like? The move from, the corporate environment, the true, surrounding yourself with legal professionals, and business professionals on that side, to switch over to the partner side. Can you walk us through a little bit of the mindset and kind of how that came about?
So it's been very interesting. It seemed like the right third chapter of my career in, outside counsel, in-house counsel, and now general counsel of a provider. So it seemed like a natural progression and the right next thing for me to do. I came to Cimplifi really because Steve Harbour, a friend of all of ours, near and dear to our hearts, had taken an executive chairman position of this company, and was in a position where he was selecting people to grow the company, to help us morph, to add the contract analytics lifecycle management division. And so he asked me if I wanted to be general counsel of this company. And literally, I just said yes. It was with Steve, who is one of the scions of our industry. Amy Hinsman was coming on as president of the company. I already knew, Mark Zamsky and Adam Clayton from, who had been at compliance, and Troy Gregory from System One. And so it seemed like the right place at the right time. And I was very grateful that he thought of me.
That's awesome.
And let me ask, if I could, sort of a parallel question. You're active in clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for those of us, and I think there'll probably be many in the audience who maybe aren't even aware of that organization. I understand the recent meeting in Vegas was very well attended and very well received. And it seems like that organization is gaining some momentum. Where does Clock fit in, with the partner, the vendor, the law firm?
That's a great question, Tom. So Clock is an organization for legal operations professionals, lawyers and non-lawyers. That's been an interesting, I think, evolution in the legal technology space.
Yeah.
Is that an entire profession has grown up in the past 20 years in the implementation of technology in legal situations. And Clock is an organization for education of those professionals, which is fantastic. And I'm on the educational advisory board of Clock. And it's a very serious organization where the education of legal operations professionals is really paramount. And I love being on that. I love hearing what my peers are saying. And it's been an instruction really for us also as a company to evolve our products to meet the needs of potential clients.
So do you see legal ops as continuing to grow? It's a, for lack of a better phrase, it's a growth industry. I mean, more and more people at more and more organizations are going to gravitate into that spot, and organizations are taking it seriously.
Yes, I think it is an amazing career path. I've said this a bunch of times, but like I was at a conference in around 2015, 16, and somebody asked me on a panel about the future of e-discovery. And I said, it's dead. Do not go into e-discovery as a profession. As a lawyer, you need to do something else, just be a litigator or whatever. The e-discovery professional it was good for me and I wrote it out, but I don't think it's long-term. So I was right and I was wrong. I was mostly wrong. I was wrong because what evolved out of that is a legal operations professional, which is a fantastic career path where I think most major companies now have someone in that role, whether it's e-billing, matter management, e-discovery, contract analytics, lifecycle management, RFPs, data privacy, all of these information governance systems, all of these important integral parts of an enterprise involve legal and technology. And so whether it's a lawyer who knows how to speak tech or a technologist who knows how to speak law, these professionals are really now valued and integrated in the enterprise at a very high level.
Right. So it's not that e-discovery itself is, well, it is that e-discovery itself is a dead profession going forward. It's the integration. It's the integration, but you got to be wider. It absolutely, if you just solely focus on e-discovery today, it is not the same as someone focusing on e-discovery 10 years ago, where they were really seen as like, the guru. You got to have a wider, like
the wizard than the guru,
right? More of the wizard, exactly. But you need to be touching on all those other aspects as well. And it's interesting because the legal operations, it's not something new. It's existed. There's always been someone within a large corporation, within a large legal department, within a law firm who's focused on a lot of these different things. But the fact that now they have a title, that it's an actual position that someone can aspire to, I think that's the big change that Clock has pushed over the last 3-4 years. And now you just see a lot more people coming out with that title, with a legal operations, whether it's manager, director, whatever it is. It's a great opportunity, and it does give you a lot more clout, I think, within the department, because you are actually looking at not just the cost avoidance, but also in a lot of cases it's other aspects and the business needs as well. So it's really it's pretty cool what's happened there.
Let me ask Marla. I'm sorry to interrupt, Rocky, but so my take on that is not so much that e-discovery is dead, but that e-discovery is reactive to only a very small portion of what's going on at the firm or the business. Litigation, right? You got to have the litigation in the dispute and the discovery process. The other aspects, the legal operations, is proactive and cuts across all the things that at some point may whittle down to e-discovery, or a piece of it may whittle down, but is much more proactive and involved with the management of the business across, as you said, Marla, a lot of different buckets. So I think that, there's this recognition that we can get on top of this e-discovery thing before it even becomes e-discovery. And that gives us a little better handle on it right from the beginning. Browning Marian used to say, if you start looking at what your data retention policy is after the reservation letter comes in, you're toast.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. So having joined Cimplifi, first of all, what role does the partner have in your vision with the legal operations, with e-discovery within the corporation and within the law firms? Like, what from your perspective, because you've always had a unique perspective on these things, how do you see the partners fitting in?
Yeah, I love this part of my job because we're still a relatively small and growing company. So I am the only working lawyer at Cimplifi. So I do the lawyering stuff, but I also have enough time to get involved in other things. And some of that is just being on the workflows of some of our clients, watching the emails, putting in a few cents here and there when I have an idea, helping our clients think through some of their issues. And really the place for a partner is in the triangle, right? So there has to be, and this was important to me when I was in-house, there has to be a true partnership and vision together between the provider, the law firm, and the foundation of the corporate client. And that is really key. So that collaboration and willingness to explore the use of technology in a way that gets the client to the best result. That's what's fun, right? It is. It's just fun. It's problem solving, and I love that. And I think we do. I think we do as good a job as anyone can do in trying to bridge those gaps. And our eye is always on what can we do to make this better. And, we'll code, we'll use technology, we'll think differently. And it's a fun time. I know, Rocky, that's, that was your fundamental way of working too. So maybe I picked some of that up from you.
Well, thank you, but I think you had it a little bit on your own already. Let's. What does the next year or two for Marla Crawford look like? What are you focused on? What do you think you're going to be? What's going to excite you over the next short future?
Few things. One is our contract analytics division. This is new for me. This is a new topic. I feel excited about it the way I did about e-discovery. It's actually better for me because I have that e-discovery foundation, and we actually sponsored a study where we flushed out our original idea that the skills that professionals had learning e-discovery, how easily translatable they are to contract analytics, lifecycle management. So I guess I'm proving that out, but it's really fun working with that team, building something new, and it's very exciting. And I feel like contract analytics today is sort of where we were with e-discovery about 10 years ago.
Mhm.
So I feel pretty lucky to get another rodeo out of this legal technology in my career. And then I'm also, really happy that I've been able to travel again, to get out, do some thought leadership, go to conferences, meet with people, hear what folks are talking about. I'm a people person, and so it's really nice for me to be able to be on the ground again, meeting with clients and seeing people.
It's awesome.
I hear that more and more as we're getting into the summer, and there seems to be some leveling off of what's going on with COVID. Knock on wood that doesn't change with some new, variant Z pops up. But the real strength of conferences, much to a lot of people's surprise, is the interpersonal relationships, the meeting, the face-to-face. We are coming out of almost a national hibernation, right? Where everybody's been stuck in the cave for the last year and a half. And, it's like we're coming out and dusted ourselves off and seeing people again.
Right.
And that's a really, really big thing. I remember I made a foray out last fall. I just went really quickly. Craig Ball and I took a flight up to DC for the Georgetown conference in November. And we arrived around noon on a Thursday, stayed around for the afternoon, went to see some things in the morning, the next morning, and we were out of there by noon. We were literally there for 24 hours, but it was the excitement of people just connecting again was incredible. I think we'll see more and more of that as the year to be. Well, I think you did see some of that, right? With Clock and Women in e-Discovery had their meeting in San Diego not long ago. We got ILTA coming up in August. I mean, this thing will start to snowball a little bit where we can get back to, not so much back to normal, just back to talking to each other. I just think we got lost in the technology and we forgot how much that, as Mr. Springsteen likes to say, it's all about the human touch. Right?
Exactly. So, okay, let's, if it's okay, we'll move on to a couple quick questions before we wrap things up. So let's run through a couple of these. We're going to start with, if you can, short piece of advice that you would give your younger self. What quick piece of advice would you give your younger self?
Be patient. Everything will work out in the end. Be patient. I am not a patient person by nature. It's something I've had to work on and learn. And now that I am a somewhat more patient person, it does make you happier when you're patient.
Okay.
As an Irishman, I can totally sympathize with that.
What's your favorite book?
I love all of the Daniel Silva books on the Israeli spy, Gabriel Alone. That whole series I'm obsessed with. It's like a combination of Israeli spy and art and food and everything, and I love them.
Yep, no, he's an incredible author. I heard him speak a couple years ago in DC. I think he lives in DC.
Yes,
I'm pretty sure he does. So
I read that. Yeah, love those books.
Yeah. Okay, if you could, you talked about getting out and traveling, but if you could live anywhere in the world other than New York, where would you want to live?
Oh boy. Well, I went to college in North Carolina, and I have to say I love that weather. There were seasons, but none of them were too harsh except for the summer, which you can manage. So I guess I'd go back to Carolina.
Yep, not the Cleveland snow in middle of April or May.
The lake effect from Lake
And
Erie was enough for 18
the
years.
wind off the water there, right?
Don't need to do that again.
I'm actually
Canadian.
I'm going to Cleveland this weekend. My sister lives there, and yeah, she's like, I can almost promise you that it's not going to be snowing in the middle of June, but I don't really want to make that promise.
Yeah. But bring a sweater just in case.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and the last question: beach or snow?
Snow.
Snow. Cool. Then I will kick it over to Tom for one last rapid fire question and our close up.
All right. So my rapid fire question is an easy one. Beatles or Stones?
Oh man, that
Not
is
easy.
so hard. Oh my God. My life motto is life is an and. So I just reject this notion that I have to pick one, but if I had to pick one, I'd have to go Beatles.
Yeah.
You have to go Beatles?
Yeah.
So I believe, Tom, the score is right now, what, about 85-2?
Two. Yeah.
Beatles versus Stones?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes being in the majority is not being right. So
That's true. Actually, I'll support that.
Not on this one. Not on this one.
But Rocky's an adamant Beatles, as am I. I mean, their imprint on music, their songwriting, their influence, both as a band and as musicians, is second to none. But the Rolling Stones are the greatest rock and roll band in the history of rock and roll. So there you go.
Rock and roll. Yeah.
So our last question, Marla, one we ask everybody is, if you could spend a day with anybody from our profession, and they could be living or deceased, who would that person be, and what would you do with them? What would you spend the day doing?
Well, I'm going to limit it to the e-discovery profession. How's that? Because that's
it's your question, your answer.
So many, many years ago, when I was a very young lawyer and I was really just starting out learning about e-discovery from nothing, there was a woman named Joan Feldman who brought me along. She was like the grandmother of e-discovery. She was the most generous person and taught me so much, not even about e-discovery, but just about life in e-discovery and being a young woman and the way I should think about entering this subdivision of our profession as a woman. And the things that she told me and taught me and her joy about it made such a mark on me. I lost touch with her for years, decade now, and I don't know really what she went on to do, but she was really more influential in my career than she would ever know.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I knew Joan.
What would you do with her?
What would you spend the day doing?
Oh, I would just love to talk to her. She was, first of all, she was a riot. She was raucous, and she didn't follow the rules, and she said what she thought, and she was a hoot. And I would just love to be able to say thank you to her, because I do think about her from time to time, and she really affected my life. And it's amazing how people affect your life who they don't even realize it. And that's happened to me in the reverse, where a young person can say, you may not remember me or remember that you said this to me, but it changed the entire path of my career. So, pay it back and pay it forward.
Yeah, awesome. Great advice.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's all we have time for today. Marla, I want to thank you very much for joining us. Great insights, and wish you continued success at Cimplifi. Will you be at ILTA in August?
I don't know. I don't have plans right now, but that makes me want to look into it and hopefully see you guys.
Yeah, well,
awesome.
Rocky, of course, is speaking at ILTA. when they found out that I was a Stones fan, they kicked me to the curb,
Yeah.
rejected my speaking application. So, but I'm going to go and hang out and just be a general curmudgeon, as is my want. So I will be there, and you'll at some point, if you'd show up, you'll see Rachi and I out on the lawn at the Gaylord smoking cigars. Just
There's a decent chance of that. Yep.
being general irritants to the rest of the e-discovery community. Hopefully joined by his brother, Jimmy.
Yeah.
So, but again, thank you very much, Marla. Really appreciate it, and appreciate your time and your insights. Rachi, is always a pleasure. Look forward to seeing you in a little bit. And
thank you, Tom. Thank you, Marla. That's great.
Yep. All of our viewers, thanks for listening in, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time on the e-discovery channel. Thanks.
Thanks all.